bring your siddur, find yourself a seat. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I know all of you are checking your calendar, and you all know that the last time, I don't know why it's taking all that sound, we'll see if we can get rid of that. I know you're all checking your calendar, you all know that the last time that we had Shabbat in the round was March 2020. It's been quite a little while since we were able to have Shabbat in the round, and we can tell you that we actually had not planned. Maybe I'm just going to get rid of this, I think. We'll just get rid of this one. There we go. Maybe I'll just use this thing. I'm just going to put it in my pocket right there. It'll be great. It's going to work out just fine, just like we planned it. And so we actually had not planned on having Shabbat in the round yet. We were going to wait till sometime in the summer to maybe try this out again and see how it goes, until someone called the temple, I don't want to point anybody out, but until somebody called the temple and said, you know what would be great? I like Shabbat in the round. Wouldn't it be great if that were the Shabbat for celebrating my birthday? 39th, right? Am I off by 38th? I apologize for making you a year older. So if Judy's 38th birthday, which is, what is it today, officially today? Yes. Officially, if I'm not mistaken, tell me if I'm right. I just got to be official here. So it's your 38th birthday if I double it and subtract 1, is that right?
I can't do that math.
Okay. Did somebody else do that math and see if I'm correct? I think it is, but yeah. But is that right? Does that sound about right to you? Nobody's saying. She's at least 38 and definitely below 100, and somewhere in between there, I'm certain of it. But and we said, yeah, that's a great idea. We should do Shabbat in the round. And so to start off our Shabbat in the round, since it was your idea to get started now, and it's a great idea, would you be so kind as to come on up and light our Shabbat candles for us in honor of Shabbat and in honor of your birthday as well? And I'm going to put this here so they can hear you. Put the blessing on this page right here.
Of course, then there's the, can you get it going? You do that part.
I'll do that part? Okay, ready? That's the birthday police calling to let you know that it's your birthday.
All these candles.
Yep.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lechad likner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, Judy, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As we turn in our Siddur to page 130, we begin Kabbalat Shabbat as we begin the process of welcoming in Shabbat with the words of Lechu Neranena of Psalm 95, "Come, let us sing joyfully to God." Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena Ladonai. Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu, Nekadma Fanav Betoda. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu, Bismirot Naria Lo. Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena Ladonai. Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena Ladonai. I was just looking around the room and it reminded me that I should tell some people this because I think there's some people in the room that don't quite know this yet, but you're going to know it now. The book goes from right to left and not left to right. So the numbers are, if you're thinking it's an English book, yeah, it sort of is, but it's a Hebrew book too. So look the other direction and you'll be on the page. And the Hebrew's on the right-hand side of the page. Right next to it is the Hebrew written in English characters. And underneath it is a translation that I will tell you I disagree with because it's my duty as a rabbi to disagree with the translations of the other rabbis and say, I would definitely translate it better than that, because that's just what we do. But the translations are pretty good of the translations that are here. We're going to continue in Psalm 96. It's on page 131. The first two lines of the psalm, if you want the English, it's on page 132 at the top of the page. But Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, sing to God a new song. Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, all of the earth will sing a new song. We're going to sing those two lines in the Hebrew in reverse order because that's how this particular songwriter, she decided to put those two verses. So we'll sing together. Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz. Shiru LaAdonai, Shir Chadash. Shiru, Shiru LaAdonai. Shiru, Shiru LaAdonai. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru LaAdonai, Kol Haaretz. Shiru LaAdonai, Shir Chadash. Okay, so who's feeling adventurous? I got two people that answered for everyone else, so that's good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to try this. We're going to try it in a round, okay? So one side of the room is going to sing this part that goes like this. Shiru LaAdonai, Kol Ha. So that's the part, the one side of the room. The other side of the room is going to sing the part that goes, Shiru LaAdonai. And then we're going to switch the parts, okay? So I'm going to make this easy on all of us, and I'm going to make it easy on me too, and I'm going to ask Ellie to help me lead. our education director, Ellie Emmerhart, over here, and she's going to take this side of the room, and I'm going to take that side of the room. We're going to start this side, my side of the room. We're going to do Shiru La. Okay, that's going to be our side, and your side is going to start with Shiru La Adonai, and then we're going to switch. Are we ready? So, ready? Shiru La Adonai. Shiru, Shiru La Adonai. Now we're switching. Shiru La Adonai. Kol haaretz. Shiru La Adonai. Shir Chadash. Now are you feeling very, very, very adventurous? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. It's no longer one side of the room and the other side of the room. You are going to pick which side you want to be, which part, if you want to start with all the long words or the chorus part, and you can sing to your neighbor or you can sing to your spouse. You can sing to the person sitting across the room from you, whichever part you would like. And here we go. Shiru La Adonai Kol haaretz. Shiru La Adonai Shir. Now switch where for the other part. Shiru La Adonai Kol haaretz. Shiru La Adonai Shir Chadash. That sounded like we just had choir practice for weeks, and that was the product. That was beautiful. What a beautiful way to help welcome in Shabbat. We're going to continue on page 132 at the bottom of the page, 4 lines from the bottom that says Or Zarua La Tzadik, which means light is sown, like seeds are sown. Light is sown for people who are righteous. Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha, and those who are good-hearted people will have joy. So if we are righteous people and joyful people and good-hearted people, we will have happiness, and we will, with our happiness, also have light in our lives. Bottom of page 132. Or Zarua La Tzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Now, if you want to do it the way the kids at camp always sing this particular prayer, you're going to take your hands and be ready to clap. So you might want to put that siddur on your lap, because I'm not going to clap because I have to play the guitar, but I'll say clap for each clap. So it's going to go like this. Or Zarua, clap, clap, La Tzadik, clap, clap, Ul Yishrei Lev. So then you're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 claps there, got it? So you're going to go, Or Zarua, La Tzadik, Ul Yishrei Lev Sim, clap, 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 clap. Or Zarua, La Tzadik, Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Lai 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 lai. Or Zarua La Tzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. It's so joyful to bring in Shabbat and Shabbat in the round, isn't it? We're going to continue as we turn to page 135. And on 100, actually we're going to go to 134 first of all, and we're going to read together from Psalm 98 in the English in the middle of page 134. Sing praise to Adonai with the lyre and melodious song, with trumpets and the blast of the horn. Raise a shout to Adonai the ruler. Let the sea and all within it thunder, the world and its inhabitants. Let the rivers clap their hands, the mountains sing joyously together at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly, and its people with equity. And so we sing those joyful songs that this psalm refers to, leading us into the next psalm, Psalm 99 on page 135. The bottom three lines, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, we exult and praise Adonai our God, V'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, and we bow down at God's holy mountain, Ki kadosh Adonai, because God is holy. And then in our own hearts, we can write the last line of the psalm that's actually not there, but the idea is there. It says, Ki kadosh Adonai, because God is holy, and we can in our own thoughts add, and therefore I will be holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. On page 136 and 137, we come to Psalm 29, a psalm that, continuing with this idea of praising God through the Psalms, getting us ready for Shabbat, that speaks of God's power in the universe. And as we read through the words in the English, you can focus on the idea that God's power in the universe and the things that God does, some of them God does in very big ways, as some of the things in this psalm, and some God does in very small ways, as we also will see in the psalm. We read together, a psalm of David. Ascribe to Adonai, O divine beings. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. Bow down to Adonai, majestic in holiness. The voice of Adonai is over the waters. The God of glory thunders, Adonai, over the mighty waters. The voice of Adonai is power. The voice of Adonai is majesty. The voice of Adonai breaks cedars. Adonai shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God makes Lebanon skip like a calf, Sirion like a young wild ox. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. Adonai causes hinds to calve and strips forests bare. While in God's temple all say glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. Those last two lines in the English are also the last two lines right above it in the Hebrew. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Lai 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 lai. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Lai 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 lai. And now that we've made our way through the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat, we make our way to Lecha Dodi, page 138 and 139, as we welcome in the image of the Shabbat bride, the Kabbalists, the Kabbalistic rabbis who lived 500 or so years ago in the region of Sfat in northern Israel. They, through all of the readings of Talmud and mystical books, had this idea that the way that we should look at Shabbat, it's not the only way to look at Shabbat, but it's one way to look at Shabbat, is that Shabbat is kind of like a wedding, and the Jewish people are the groom, and Shabbat is the bride, and when they come together, it's a moment of great joy. And so, I never understood why people write sad melodies for this next prayer, because it's a great moment of great joy. And so we'll sing a joyful melody for Lecha Dodi. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. 1, 2, 5, 9. What about 4? I'll give the short version. The real answer to this question is a 25-minute long class, but we won't do that right now. We'll give you the short version. Here's the reason. There are 9 verses in Lecha Dodi. The reason there are 9 verses in Lecha Dodi is because if you look at the first letter of each one in the Hebrew, you will see, take a look in the Hebrew. You can look in the English letters, that worked for you too, just for the sounds. There's a shin or an sh, then a lamed, then a mem, then a hey. Shin, lamed, mem, hey spells shlomo. And then if you look at the next page on 5, 6, 7, there's a hey and a lamed and a vav that spells halevi, and then a yud in verse 8. Shlomo Halevi, the name of the rabbi who wrote this poem, his name was Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz. So why did he put his name in the prayer? Because there was this concept that we should put ourselves into our prayers. And so it's an idea that when we pray, we should really put ourselves into our prayer, right? But there was also a time where rabbis who wrote liturgical poetry said, I'm literally going to do that to prove that I'm putting myself into the prayer. So that's the beginning of it. The next part of this, why 1, 2, 5, and 9 and not 4 and all the rest of them, right, is this, that this poem has 2 major themes. One of them is Shabbat, and the other one is the coming of the Messiah. And the Reform movement for many, many years said, we don't believe in the concept of a Messiah. We believe in the concept of a messianic age, that the Messiah will be a time and not a person. And so we are going to, when we sing this poem, which has become part of the Kabbalat Shabbat tradition, we are going to remove the verses that talk about the idea of Messiah and only sing the verses that sing about Shabbat. And that became, and all Reformed prayer books only had verses 1, they didn't even actually have 5. They had 1, 2, and 9. Those were the only verses in the Reformed prayer books until this one came out from the Reform movement, and they said, we're going to put all 9 verses in again so that people kind of have a choice if they want to sing all of the verses or just those 4. And so since we brought it up, I'm going to ask the birthday girl, you get to pick. Do you want to do just 1, 2, 5, and 9, or do you want to do all 9? We're going with 1, 2, 5, and 9. I'm not going to argue with the birthday girl. That's just all there is to it. We'll do that one. Another question. So the bet in verse 9, that's good. What about the bet in verse 9? Shlomo Halevi, and then there's a bet in verse 9. So the bet in verse 9 represents the bet in the beginning of the Torah, which is the first letter of the Torah, Bereshit. It's not an Aleph because Aleph is God, which existed before creation, and the bet is the first letter in the Torah, the word Bereshit, and bet is everything that comes after creation. So Shlomo Halevi is dealing with all that God created. So that's how that fits together. Yeah. Like I said, it's like an hour-long class, and we did like the 6-minute version of it or something there. But now maybe you know a little bit more about Lecha Dodi, this really beautiful poem that talks about welcoming in Shabbat in the concept of a bride. There's some messianic, not modern, that group that calls themselves whatever they call themselves, but Jewish Messiah ideas in the prayer as well. And you want to do Lecha Dodi, that one? Okay. So this is a beautiful melody written by a wonderful Jewish songwriter by the name of Craig Taubman, and he wrote it for a service in Los Angeles at Sinai Temple, which is called Shabbat Alive, that has been going on now for 30-something years or something like that it's been there. And this melody was written there. And if we had a clarinet player, we'd have them play the clarinet part that they play on the original recording of this. But since we don't, we'll just imagine that there's beautiful klezmer music surrounding us while we sing this kind of jazzy version here. And we're going to start off a little slowly, and then we're going to get into the joy of Kabbalat Shabbat. Lecha lecha dodi Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Lecha lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela la 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 Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Lecha lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Shamor v'zor b'dibur echad Hishmi anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem u'tiferet ve'letchila la 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 Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Lecha lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mekor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila la 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 Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela. Verse number 5. Hitoreri Kiva ore kumi uri shir daberi Kivod Adonai alayich nigla la 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 Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela. We rise as we face the door to greet the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha uv'tzola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala la 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 Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela la 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 Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela Lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikabela. And before you sit down, it makes it so easy when we're in a circle. We just greeted the Shabbat bride. Let's greet each other. To the people in front of you, behind you, to the side of you, around you. Everybody, Shabbat Shalom. Alrighty. And for those of you, let me see which camera we're on. We're on that camera. For those of you that are with us virtually on YouTube, on Facebook Live, or on TempleShalom.com, Shabbat Shalom to all of you as well. We're thrilled that you're with us this evening also. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. On page 140, we can all be seated as we have greeted everyone. Page 140, a psalm of Shabbat, Psalm 92. On page 140, Psalm 92, the official psalm of Shabbat that the Levites sang in the ancient temple as they prepared for Shabbat. We do too. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, let us sing a song of Shabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. It is good to thank God. Ulazamer l'shimcha elyon, and to sing to God's name most high. Page 140. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Lahagid baboker chasdecha, ve'emunatecha balelot, alei asor ve'aleina ve'lalei higayon bechinor. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Ki simachtani Adonai b'fo'olecha, b'maaseh yadecha aranein. Ma gadlu ma'asecha Adonai me'od, amku machshvotecha. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. On page 142, we sing a song that originally was written as kind of a song to sing around the table with your family at Shabbat dinner. And over the last few centuries, it's also made its way into our prayer book. It invites the angels to come, not the baseball team in California, but the other angels. I don't know anything about baseball, I just only know hockey. But the idea is this, that on Shabbat, everything is double. A little while ago, Judy lit our Shabbat candles, and the prayer, if you were listening carefully, even if you weren't listening carefully, the prayer still said the same thing. It said, Lahadlik ner shel Shabbat, which means blessed candle, one, singular, because ner means one candle, nerot means more than one. Bless is the candle, one, of Shabbat, but we have two. In many families and in many synagogues, on Shabbat, you do not bless one loaf of challah, but you bless two. The idea being that because it's Shabbat and Shabbat is special, we increase everything that's special about Shabbat and we double it. So on Shabbat, the mystical Jewish writings say that on Shabbat we do not have one soul, but we have two. And because we have two souls, and most of us have a difficult enough time keeping the one soul pure enough as it is every day of the week, right? We might need a little extra help taking care of that extra soul. And so God sends angels. Oh, were you asking a question? You were saying you were having trouble taking care of the one soul. Yes. You're going to have to discuss that with them later. But the idea being, if we have this extra soul, God sends ministering angels, helper angels, to help us take care of that second soul. Those angels follow us home from the synagogue, and they stay with us for all of Shabbat. And when Shabbat leaves, they go on their way, and then they come back to us when the next Shabbat comes. Isn't it a beautiful image? It's such a beautiful, wonderful image. And that's what these words say. They say, oh, angels, peace to you, angels, come in peace, bless us in peace. And when you go out at the end of Shabbat, go out in peace. And so we sing to the angels. We're going to start slowly, and it's going to speed up as we go along. Shalom aleichem, malachei hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malachi Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malachi Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Bo'achem l'shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, mi melech, Malachi Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni l'shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, mi melech, Malachi Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni l'shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, mi melech, Malachi Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, mi melech, Malachi Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Lie, 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 lie. Lai, 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 lai. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech, Malachi Hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And now that we've welcomed in Shabbat and we've welcomed in the angels, we continue with Chatzi Kaddish as we move into the Ma'ariv, the evening service, page 144. Yitkadav Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah Belmad Yivrak Yerutei V'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon Uv'yomechon Uv'chayei Techol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala Ba'agala Uv'izman Kariv V'yimeru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam Ul'al Me'al Maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'dechemata damiron be'alma v'yimeru. Amen. We turn to page 146 before we rise, which we're going to do in just a second. Page 146 gives us a little bit of a dilemma. Because on page 146, we stand up and we bow during this prayer. Usually synagogues are set up so that we face toward the east, which would be roughly that way where the ark is over there. But when we're set up in the round, we're not all faced toward the east. So why do we face toward the east? Because it's toward Jerusalem, which means that if you're on other parts of the earth, you might face north or south or west, depending upon where you might be on the planet. And if you are in Israel, you might face different directions depending on where Jerusalem is. And if you are, what's the next question? If you're in Jerusalem, you face toward the old city of Jerusalem. And if you are in the old city of Jerusalem, you face in the direction where the Kotel is, or the western wall is right below where the temple was in ancient times. So it leaves an interesting dilemma, and you each get to solve that dilemma on your own, which is, do we choose to be very traditional and face towards the east as we say Baruch Hu? Or do we feel the energy of the room and want to be bowing in front of God and feel God's presence among the group and crowd that are with us? And that facing toward the east doesn't such matter to us anymore in this setting. And the correct answer to that is the one that you choose. And so I'm going to invite everybody to stand up. And if you feel compelled to bow toward the east, that's the direction you should bow. If you feel compelled to bow within the room, that's up to you as well. We call ourselves to prayer with our invitation to prayer on page 146. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. We can all be seated. As we turn to page 148, we come to a prayer called Ma'ariv Aravim. Ma'ariv Aravim gives thanks for creation. We have a morning creation prayer called Yotzer, or the one who forms light. And we have an evening prayer called Ma'ariv Aravim, which means the one who brings on the evening. And if you look at the English of the translation of this prayer, it tells us that night comes before day and day comes before night, and that the seasons roll through and God controls the seasons and the stars and all of it as time passes by. And so this prayer is a reflection on creation and the time that comes after that creation, reflecting back onto that creation. And there may be no better way to think about that concept of creation and reflecting back on time since creation and the flowing of time than to maybe ask a birthday girl if she might give us a little reflection on creation and time and the passage of time and such.
So I had started listening to Amanda Gorman before most people heard her at the inauguration. And it was like a light switch, because I had stopped writing poetry because I hated it so much, because I thought it was so confining. This is the first poem I wrote after listening to Amanda Gorman, and it is called The Mirror Chronicle. And I wrote it in November of 2020. There are wrinkles of time now that I never understood, though I drew them all my childhood. I felt it in my art, but comprehension fell apart, since only my eyes saw it in those old hearts. I noticed the signs, but never read it. I was too busy being young, being new, to worry about how they grew into my being, not just the others I was seeing. It tiptoed in, worn slippers on carpeted floor. It never shaped me, just draped the ones I adored. I saw it, I watched it, I sketched it on paper often, but it was in my eyes observing, in my steady hand, not near my bland brain, not there yet to understand. Years sneaked by, and I am oblivious to my own cry. I hear the Carly Simon song, but still, it does not bring along my notice, the sting of recognition. The mirror provides some ammunition, but I still see it with the shallow of my eyes. My fallow brain and heart denies. I write baby lines off as trickles of fickle light. They play off my body from night to night, No fright, not yet. I manage to turn my head with grace away from those sneaky lines that no longer visit but linger and redefine my face. Time accelerating, whispering, beware. I excel at berating others for not acting sooner, for not taking care. Hushing the truth, we all fly forward. But signs of unease wafted into my nights, observing sights of changes, more sadness, less delights. My mouth forming joyous, boisterous cheers now yields more downward words of fears, yearns. No matter where I turn for happy special, life brings forth medical and memory trouble. Weird obsessions bubble like pocket padding for possessions. No longer hurrying for tomorrow, I note with sorrow the passing of today's each day, breaking the time, making moments count, whereas before, tick-tock time was of no account to me, for I was too busy to see, you see, to really see what matters didn't matter then somehow. The slip of time pulling my bones, grasping memories now unknown, thirsting for more where none are coming. Slowly grasping memories slide. They collide, reaching for a frail hold, finding none inside me. They evaporate with every breath I breathe. Now I search the mirror for any smooth place, my face. The space is not now mine, but some sublime joke. A stranger, a mime, looks back in puzzled confusion, trying to fix her intrusion in my space, my being. Is this really now my soul I'm seeing?
You may have noticed in your prayer book that on the even-numbered pages, there's the prayer, and on the odd-numbered pages, there are some poetic renditions of the particular concept of the prayer. We might just rip page 149 out of the book and replace it now, because we have a better poem to sum up this idea of time going by. So I'm just going to end your poem with this. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, God, who creates evening and makes the time flow. Page 150. We give thanks for the gift of Torah with all of its lessons, its pathways for life. We say, Ahavat Olam, with an eternal love of your people Israel. You have given us the laws and the statutes, the pathways of the Torah to guide us through our lives. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadita, Otanu limadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shokfeinu v'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha uv'mitzvotecha leolam va'ed ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu Uvahem nehege yomam velayla, nehege yomam velayla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Ohev Amo Yisrael. On page 152, the third line of the Hebrew says, Ufros aleinu sukhat shlomecha. It means, God, will you shelter us in your shelter of peace? When we ask for God to shelter us, this prayer, Hashkivenu, means lie us down in peace. And while we sleep, protect us through the night underneath that shelter of your peace. 4 Hebrew words, line 3 of the Hebrew, Ufros aleinu sukhat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukhat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukhat shlomecha. It's actually page 160. Yalai lai lai, yalai lai lai, yalai lai 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 lai, yalai lai lai, yalai lai lai, yalai lai lai, yalai lai 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 lai. Ufros aleinu sukhat shlomecha. And now we turn back to 152 and 153 as we join together in the words of Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We turn the page. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uvshuchbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beineinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvish arecha leman tiskeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. We read a translation of those words together in English on page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gates. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Page 159. We come to the Geulah, the prayer of redemption, that God redeemed us from slavery in Egypt and brought us to freedom. We read an introduction to these words of Michamocha, the words that come from the book of Exodus during our moving through the departed Sea of Reeds. And we read together, sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Page 158. Ya lai lai la lai 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 lai, ya lai lai la lai 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 lai, ya lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malachutecha ra'uvanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze eli anu ve'amru, ze eli anu ve'amru. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Ya lai lai la lai 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 lai, ya lai lai la lai 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 lai, ya lai 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 lai, ya lai lai lai, ya lai 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 lai. Baruch atah Adonai go'al Yisrael. Page 162. The people of Israel will keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat through the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel, God said. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from all the work. God refreshed God's soul. And as God did, we cease from all of our work and refresh our souls. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam, berit olam, beni uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz u'v'yom hashvi'i Shabbat, Shabbat, vayinafash, Shabbat, Shabbat, vayinafash, v'shameru, Shabbat, Shabbat, vayinafash, v'shameru, Shabbat, Shabbat, vayinafash. As we turn to page 164, we rise for the Amidah. Again, we have that choice of facing to the east or facing into the room. We'll join together in the first three paragraphs, the meditation here in the first three paragraphs of the Amidah, and then we'll take time for our own silent prayers. Those prayers end on page 180 and 181. If you want to use the prayers that are in the Siddur, you can take time for your own silent meditations as well. We join together in our Amidah. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei hakol V'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot Umevi geula livnei v'nehem L'ma'an shemo be'ahava Melech ozer Mashiach u'magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. 168. Atah gibor leolam Adonai Mechaye hakol atah Rav lehoshia Morid hatal Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechayim hakol berachamim Rabbi Somech noflim verofe kolim Umatir asurim Umekaye emunato lishene afar michamocha ba'givurot umido melach melech mimid umechaye umatmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye hakol. Top of 170. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehallelu selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently with the words on pages 171 through 181, or the words we find in our own hearts and our own souls. When you're done with your silent prayer, please be seated. On page 178 in your Siddur, you'll find a prayer for peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol heit uvechol sha'a bishlomecha. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. If you'll turn in your Siddur to page 371. We turn our thoughts to those in our congregation, in our community, and around the world who are in need of healing. For those of you who are joining us, what camera am I looking at? This one right here. For those of you who are joining us on Facebook and on YouTube and on templeshalom.com, if you would like to include names for healing, you can type them into the chat box on your particular platform. You can say them out loud. I'm going to read the list of people we have here, and then we'll go around the room and see if there are other names that you'd like to include as well. We ask for God to bring refuah shlema, complete healing, to Yishav Zaza, Carrie Schillinger, Robert Oppenheim, Carrie Susser, Brian Zabel, Reuven ben Sipora, Chaim Mordechai ben Shmuel Yisaschar, Moshe ben Avraham ben Meir, Judy Bauman, Avram ben Udul, Evan Burnett, Ellen McIntosh, John Redmond Palmer, William Redmond Palmer, Molly Delaney, Beverly Bellin, Calvin Waxman, Nee Howard, Yaakov ben Moshe Halevi, Susan Perry, Paltiel bat Mordechai Vasha, Amy Sutton, Jessica Lee Fletcher. We also ask for healing for those who are still suffering from the COVID-19 virus. Unfortunately, the numbers are growing again, but we pray for healing for all of them as well. If we have other names that anybody would like to include, we'll make our way around the room. Thank you. 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 For all those that we have named, for all those in need, we ask for God to bring each and every one of them healing. And may that healing come as quickly as possible as we turn to the middle of page 371. Mi sheberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu Mikor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. In our Siddur, we are going to turn, I have to look up the page now. We're going to turn in our Siddur to page 570. 570. On page 570, we come to the counting of the Omer. The counting of the Omer is a thing that we do between the second day of Pesach and the end of the 49 days, we count 49 days, leading us to Shavuot. An Omer, what is an Omer? This is your quick 1-minute sermon on the Omer. An Omer is a measurement of grain. It is one sheaf of barley. And in ancient times, it was brought to the temple on each day of this counting, one sheaf of barley to count from the barley harvest that happened in the early spring. At the end of the 49 days, we have the holiday of Shavuot. That is the holiday that we say we were given the Torah. Torah was given on that day. And on that day, in the ancient temple, they would sacrifice 2 loaves of bread made from wheat. Right, I set you up to give the wrong answer. Sorry about that. 2 loaves of bread made from wheat. So why barley and wheat? Barley at the beginning and wheat at the end. If you were at the board meeting, was that last night? That wasn't like 3 weeks ago? Wow, okay. If you were at the board meeting last night, you heard about this a little bit. If you weren't at the board meeting last night, you didn't hear about this. So if you were at the board meeting last night, pretend you didn't hear this yet, and you'll learn it brand new all over again. But the idea is this, that barley in ancient times was considered a lower class grain, and wheat in ancient times was considered an upper class grain. And so when we left Egypt, in the moment we left Egypt, we were the people who ate barley because we were the slaves. But at the end of the 49 days of counting the Omer, we stood at Mount Sinai, where God gave us the Torah, and we were in that moment truly free. And so we ceased eating the lower class grain and made bread out of the upper class grain to bring that before God. So the journey of counting the 49 days of the Omer is not only a journey of counting the time from one holiday to the next, but it's counting the journey from slavery to freedom. It's counting the journey from being in a lower place to being in a higher place, whether that's literal on the ground or it's a spiritual journey for all of us. During the 49 days of the Omer, we count the time of that spiritual journey from slavery to freedom. And with that in mind, we count the Omer. In the middle of page 570. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom 28 yom, shehem 4 shvuot la'omer. Today, as the sun goes down, we come to the 28th day, which is 4 weeks of the Omer. For those of you who are paying attention, that means there's 3 weeks left to get to 49. We turn to page 586 as we rise for Aleinu. The bottom of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kogoye ha'aratzot, Velo samanu kimishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu 588 Shehu Notet Shamayim Veyoser Haaretz Umoshav Yikaro Bashamayim Mima'al Ushchinatu Zo Begofe Meheromim Hu Eloheinu Einod Emet Malkeinu Efesulato Kakatuv betorato Viadata hayom Behashevota elevavecha Ki Adonai hua Elohim Bashamayim mima'al Ve'al haaretz mitachat einod in the middle of page 590. Ki ha-malchut shelcha hi ulamei timloch bechavod. Kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad, Ushemo echad. We can all be seated. Choir practice is next Thursday at 5 p.m. We'll work on that. Alec, there's nothing I can do. I mean, I'm just the rabbi. They brought the cake, so you're only getting one slice. What can I say? That's it. We turn our thoughts to those who have died at this time of year and seasons gone by. In our yard sites this week, we recall the memories of Jack Ackerman, Catherine Rubin, Martin Dumont, Rose Olbaum, Barbara Superstein, Leah Rayfield, Anna Waxman, Selma Orenstein, Martha Dedrick, Edgar King, Roz White, Saul Michan, Fanny Wallowich, Helen Goldman, Jacob Zemansky, Phyllis Weiner, Robert Bloom, Frank Black, and Jean Goldberg. You may have noticed that around the country, and for I think it's 2 more days, flags are at half-mast all over the country to mark the more than 1 million, it's now more than 1,060,000 Americans who have died from COVID-19 pandemic, and more than 6.4 million worldwide. We think of their memories as well. We also are in the period of Shloshim for Marvin Straight, and tonight we bring to a close the period of Shilva for Sylvia Chuk, mother of Marlene Rothside. Are there any other yard sites that anyone is observing tonight? Thank you. Any others? Thank you. Yehiyu zichronam levracha. May their memories be a blessing. We ask mourners to rise and those whose custom it is as well. Yes. Elizabeth Jane Karnick as well. Thank you. Mourners to please rise. Those whose custom it is to stand with them, as in their memory. Yitkadal ve'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mvorach le'olam la'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromah.
And go from there. If you know of any temple members who are ill, hospitalized, suffering in any way, shape, or form, please contact the office. We do want to reach out. We want to make everybody feel like they are definitely cared about, and we do care. Tonight's Oneg is sponsored by Judy and Craig Karnick. Thank you very much. In honor of her 29th birthday again. Should I say it? Yes, her 75th birthday, and boy, you sure don't look it. Mazel tov, and thank you for having us in part as your celebration. If you'd like to sponsor an Onik for any reason, please don't hesitate. Whoa. No, do call. But don't hesitate to call Elena or Elise in the office and let them know. And besides that, Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. I'm going to give the mic to you because I really messed up.
All righty. If you were on page 598, you can stay there if you'd like, because we're going to take the words that are at the bottom of the page, the last 3 lines of the Hebrew there, and it's going to start off slowly and it's going to speed up. So if you don't know this melody, you'll learn it, and then you got to keep up with us. So are we ready? Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. He hooks on that little thing right there, yeah. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. One more time. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Even one more time. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please join us for Kiddush and Motzi in the social hall. To those of you with us virtually, Shabbat Shalom to all of you as well. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.